So if you spent any time online this week, there is a decent chance that you saw our guest Amanda Seales in a YouTube debate show called Jubilee, where she debated 20 black conservatives on topics from racism to reparations. Here's just a part of it.
I refuse to embrace a victim mentality because that's not what our grandparents and Harriet Tubman and those people fought for. They fought for equal opportunity.
Do not bring up Harriet Tubman's name in vain, baby, please.
They said the Lord's name in vain. The Lord's name.
Harriet Tubman was literally saving her family and others from slavery.
Yeah. You know who helped her? White people.
You know who helped her?
They were on the Underground Railroad.
No,
Come on in.
No, you know who helped her?
Come on in.
No, you know who helped her?
God and
people who benefit from white supremacy. One of the things
it's a lie. White supremacy is a lie.
No, sir, that's simply not true.
There's no such. I mean,
if that were not the case, then we wouldn't see the continued effort of colonialism and white people placing themselves in positions of power when they do not have the power.
Because their culture. Black culture is toxic. The black culture is toxic. We have produced a culture that is toxic. And let's get on the fact that there's no fathers in the black home. Let's talk about that.
Stop.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that.
None of this is gonna work if y'all are just gonna sit here and make up. It's not gonna work. No, a debate has to be in facts.
Amanda Seales is back with us. I mean, you just said it right there that none of this is going to work if you're just going to sit here and make up some stuff. So
I got PTSD watching it.
Oh, I'm so sorry you had to relive that. The whole internet at least has been reliving it with you.
Yes.
What was your goal? Why go into that space knowing it could go off the rails?
Because ultimately we are in a desperate time of disinformation. Like, I call this the age of idiocy, right? And we know that when it comes to the internets, when it comes to media, there really has just been a commitment to not telling whole truths. We know that when it comes to academia, when it comes to nonprofits, like, it's just not a truthful time. And I know that I'm OD truthful, which is why sometimes people have an issue. But when you are of this type of mindset, when you are a revolutionary, when you know that you have the facts, you are responsible to explain it over and over and over again. That is a quote from the great Thomas Sankara of Burkina Faso. And I know that about myself and many of my peers. We understand that we have to put ourselves in these spaces sometimes and take the bruise and annoyance, knowing that we aren't speaking to just these individuals. We're speaking to an entire audience watching who may never have heard what we have to say, and they need to.
Of everything you discussed, what was the most contentious disagreement? And then what was your most surprising point of agreement?
So I would say the most contentious point of agreement was that across all of the claims, because you have to make 4 claims, then you're debating things that are undebatable, but that's another combo for another time. They all seem to keep coming back to black people are the problem with black people. There was simply no concept of cause and effect, of the continued oppressive behaviors and legislation. You know, we just had Tremaine here 2 seconds ago talking about the ways in which we are still continuing to see systemic racism experienced across the nation. And they just failed to regard that as anything of impact. And it didn't matter how many examples I gave. I would say the surprise point of agreement was actually more of a surprise for them than me, because the last person, you argue a claim that they have, and they had a claim that black people should leave the Democratic Party. And I let him talk, and then I said, I agree. And he was like, But ultimately, I am of a mind that one of our biggest misses that we did after the civil rights movement was that we didn't form a third party, a cross-coalition third party to handle what really was for the people, because the parties have never really been for the people.
Was there any moment in that debate where you moved from where you were going into it in a direction one way or the other? Did anything...
I moved further away from them.
Either further away? That's the only thing.
It was like this.
That's
like,
it, the whole time.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, because...
And nobody made a point.
Okay, you know what? Actually, I'll tell you this.
Yeah.
Nobody ever made a valid point.
Not a valid point. I was going to say nobody made a point that you could say, oh, I understand why you were making that point, even if you disagree with it.
It was more so that I could understand how they feel.
Right.
Because they weren't making points.
Yeah.
They were stating feelings about, I feel this way because this happened to me.
Right.
I feel this way because I read a book, and so I feel this way. But I went in there, and immediately when I got there, I realized, I actually don't want to argue with these people. I love these people. Because this is a very unique version of the Surrounded format. It's Black people talking to other Black people. So there's an intercommunal space that's happening that rarely gets to happen. It's happening in front of everybody. And I wanted in that moment to actually find a way to display discourse, but with civility. But unfortunately, our internet is so committed to toxicity that I had to, at certain points, I didn't even show it, but at certain points, I led them all in a primal scream together. I led them all in a deep breath together. And I really tried my best to get across to them that this is about us figuring out how to align and find a way for us. That's why I'm here.
So do you think it was productive, or did it descend into name calling?
Of course it descended into name calling because I'm human. And I'm sassy, I'm spicy. But
do you think more people should do this? I mean, some Democrats, and I know you're not by no means rooting for the Democratic Party, but some Democrats, they've been arguing about
be politicians who do this.
Right.
I think
going on with Charlie Kirk's and things like that.
No, to me, that's where they're missing the mark. And you said that so clearly earlier in the show, where you say they need to be talking to people. Folks were saying, Amanda, you should have been arguing with intellectuals. No, we need to be talking with people who are not getting the critical thinking skills. They're not getting the facts. They're not getting the truth. And we see these folks going to town halls and they're having these performance live podcast tapings, when ultimately there needs to be an intimacy that we are getting back to. And so in this format, I did get a chance to be one-on-one with people. And at the end of the show, there were people that came up and said, thank you so much. I learned a lot. There was a brother from from New Orleans, who I mentioned Katrina, and he actually left the table different than he arrived. And so I think, yes, it was useful, because ultimately a debate is not about who you're debating, it's who's watching you debate. And the goal is not to change the other person's mind, but to defend your stance in such a way that the people watching say, yeah, I got to go with that side.
Amanda Seales, thank you.
Thank you.
Great to see you, Amanda.